A childless friend kills her best friend to claim baby as hers. This is one of the most heartbreaking stories I've had to speak about on this channel. I literally was in tears while creating this. A tragedy that's almost too disturbing to believe. But before we get into the details, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you stories that not only keep you on the edge of your seat, but also make you question just how far someone can go when desperation takes over. Now, let me set the scene for you. Bowie County, Texas. A small, tight-knit community where neighbors greet each other with warm smiles and life is supposed to feel safe. But one morning, just before sunrise, the peace of this quiet neighborhood was shattered. Screams, blood-curdling screams, echoed through the walls of Britney's home. She was a young mom, only 34 weeks pregnant, with a 3-year-old daughter she adored. She had no idea that the friend she'd welcomed into her life was planning to take it all away. What happened next is truly horrifying. Taylor Parker, a woman desperate to keep up the lie of her fake pregnancy, took it upon herself to cross a line no one should ever cross. She turned what should have been a sacred bond of friendship into betrayal and violence. But here's the question. How could no one around Taylor see the signs? How did it get to this point? By the end of this story, you'll be left wondering, is desperation enough to excuse such a monstrous act, or was this pure evil masked as hopelessness? Let's dive in. Taylor Parker wasn't your typical woman. At first glance, she seemed normal. She was married, kept up appearances, and had this charm about her that made people feel like they could trust her. But behind the smiles and small talk, Taylor was living a lie. She wasn't pregnant, though she wanted everyone, especially her husband, to believe she was. And let me tell you, she didn't just stop at a little white lie. Oh no, she went all in. She faked ultrasounds. She staged a gender reveal party. Can you believe that? A whole party, complete with balloons, confetti, and the whole works. She even went as far as Googling how to fake a pregnancy convincingly. But why? Why go through all of this? Some might say it was desperation. Others might say it was pure manipulation. See, Taylor was terrified her marriage was falling apart. And instead of facing the truth, she decided to lie her way out of it. Or so she thought. Now, this is where things take a dark turn. Taylor had to keep up the charade. Month after month, she had to convince everyone she was pregnant. But how long can you fake a baby bump before people start asking questions? Her friends were suspicious, her family was doubting her, and her husband, well, he must have been wondering too. But here's the question that haunts me. Why didn't anyone confront her? I mean, if your loved one was pretending to be pregnant, wouldn't you say something? Or were they too afraid to upset her? Taylor knew her lies were unraveling. The pressure was building, and she needed a way to keep the story going. That's when she met Britney. Britney was everything Taylor wasn't. She was a glowing, expectant mom with a 3-year-old daughter and a loving family. Britney was living the life Taylor so desperately wanted. And to Taylor, Britney wasn't just a friend, she was the solution to her problem. Think about it. Taylor saw Britney's pregnancy as her way out. A twisted way to make her fake pregnancy real. But here's the thing. Did Britney have any idea what kind of danger she was in? Did she ever suspect that the woman she called a friend was planning something so horrifying? Looking back, it's chilling to think that every time Taylor smiled at Britney, every time she asked her about the baby, every time they laughed together, she was plotting. What would you do if someone you trusted turned out to be capable of something so unthinkable? All right, here's where everything spirals out of control. It was a quiet morning in Bowie County, Texas. The kind of morning where nothing out of the ordinary should happen. Britney's husband had left the house, probably thinking it was just another day. Britney, 34 weeks pregnant, was home with her 3-year-old daughter. It was supposed to be a normal day, but Taylor Parker had other plans. Taylor showed up at Britney's house, pretending to drop by for a friendly visit. You know, the kind of visit where you'd share a cup of coffee, talk about baby names, and maybe laugh about the ups and downs of pregnancy. But Taylor wasn't there to catch up. She wasn't there to celebrate the life Britney was about to bring into the world. No, Taylor came prepared. She brought a scalpel. A scalpel. That's not something you accidentally carry with you. Now picture this. Britney welcomes Taylor inside, completely unaware of what's about to happen. Maybe they made small talk. Maybe Britney even felt grateful to have a friend around while her husband was out. But then, at some point, Taylor snapped. We may never know the exact moment when Taylor decided to strike, but the attack was brutal. She knocked Britney to the ground, And what happened next is almost too horrific to describe. Taylor pinned Britney down and used that scalpel to cut her abdomen open. To take the baby, all in front of her 3-year-old daughter. Yeah, heartbreaking. Britney screamed, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Can you imagine the pain she must have felt? The terror? Doctors say that the pain of undergoing a C-section without anesthesia is so excruciating it could send your body into shock, even kill you. Now imagine the sheer agony, the helplessness, the unbearable suffering, while feeling every single cut, every tug, every stitch. And then the blood loss, relentless, unforgiving. It's not just cruel, it's pure, unthinkable evil. But it didn't stop there. Britney somehow managed to fight back. Even after everything Taylor had done, Britney wasn't going to let her take her baby without a fight. She tried to run, to escape this nightmare. But Taylor, she wasn't letting her go. Taylor grabbed something heavy. It was an award Britney's family had displayed in the house, and struck her with it. Hard. Britney collapsed. And in those final moments, her unborn baby, her little Sage, was ripped away from her. And here's the part that sends chills down my spine. Taylor didn't even hesitate. After everything she'd done, she left Britney's lifeless body there in her own home, blood everywhere, and walked out with the baby as if nothing had happened. What about Britney's 3-year-old daughter, you ask? She was right there in the room. She saw her mother's murder. Can you imagine the trauma? As Taylor sped away, neighbors who had heard the screams called 911. The police arrived quickly, and the scene they walked into, it's the kind of thing that stays with you forever. Britney was gone. The baby was gone. And Taylor? She thought she'd gotten away with it. But let me ask you this. How did she think this would end? Did she really believe she could keep up this act? Or was she so consumed by her lies that she thought she could outrun the truth? This is where things get even more jaw-dropping. And trust me, it's wild. The police arrived at Britney's house within minutes of the 911 call. Imagine this. Officers walking into a home that's supposed to be a safe haven, and instead finding an absolute horror scene. Blood on the floor, signs of a struggle, and Britney lying there, lifeless. Her abdomen had a deep, jagged cut, and the baby? Gone. At first, they had no idea what they were dealing with. A murder? A kidnapping? Both. But one thing was clear. Whoever had done this was ruthless. Now, Britney's neighbors, bless them, had already mentioned hearing screams earlier. And when the police started asking questions, they got a crucial lead. A neighbor remembered seeing a car speeding away from the house. It was Taylor Parker's car. That's when things started clicking into place. See, Taylor had been living a lie for months. And she'd left a trail, fake ultrasounds, a gender reveal party, and even claiming she was heading to a hospital that same morning to pre-register for labor. The pieces were all there, and now the police just needed to find her. And find her they did. About an hour later, a state trooper spotted Taylor's car on a highway heading toward Idaho, Oklahoma. When he pulled her over, Taylor was calm, too calm. She told the trooper she had just given birth in the car. Can you imagine that? Sitting there, covered in blood, holding the baby she had just ripped from Britney's body, and lying to the police without so much as a flinch. But here's the detail that sticks with me. The baby was still connected to the umbilical cord, which Taylor had tucked into her pants to make it seem like she'd just given birth. At this point, you'd think she'd break down. You'd think the guilt or the horror of what she'd done would catch up with her. But no, Taylor doubled down on her story. She insisted she was the baby's mother, and that she was on her way to the hospital. The trooper, of course, wasn't buying it. He had her and the baby taken to the nearest hospital. And that's when the truth came crashing down. The doctors took one look at Taylor and immediately knew. She hadn't just given birth. There were no signs of labor. No postpartum symptoms. Nothing. And when they examined the baby, they confirmed what everyone feared. This was Britney's baby. But here's the part that absolutely breaks my heart. The baby, little Sage, didn't survive. Taylor had ripped her out of Britney's body too soon, and without proper care, the newborn didn't stand a chance. At the hospital, Taylor finally cracked. She admitted to being in a physical altercation with Britney and taking the baby. But she still acted like what she'd done wasn't that bad. Can you believe that? Meanwhile, back in Bowie County, Britney's family was learning the unthinkable truth. Their daughter, their sister, their friend, gone. And the baby they had been so excited to welcome into the world, gone too. But here's the question that lingers. How does someone get to this point? What drives a person to commit such a monstrous act? Was it desperation? Narcissism? Or something darker? something we may never fully understand? So, here we are at the trial, the moment where Taylor Parker had to face the weight of her actions. And let me tell you, the courtroom was packed. Family members, friends, neighbors, reporters. Everyone wanted to know how this nightmare could have happened and whether justice would truly be served. The prosecution didn't hold back. They painted a picture of a woman who was so consumed by lies, so desperate to hold onto a relationship, that she was willing to kill. And not just kill, but murder an innocent woman in cold blood and steal the life that Britney was about to bring into the world. And here's the thing, Taylor didn't just wake up one day and decide to do this. Oh no, this was premeditated. During the trial, a state investigator laid it all out. Taylor had spent months researching how to fake a pregnancy. She watched videos, read articles, and even Googled things like how to deliver a baby at 35 weeks. Can you imagine sitting there, watching those searches pop up on the screen, knowing what she eventually did? The prosecution even brought up the fact that Taylor had faked ultrasounds. Fake ultrasounds. She went to the lengths of convincing her husband, her family, her friends, everyone, that she was pregnant. She even threw a gender reveal party. That's how far she was willing to go to keep the lie alive. But here's the question that kept coming up. Why? Why would someone go through all this? The answer was as disturbing as it was simple. Taylor thought having a baby would make her husband stay. That's it. That's what this all came down to. The defense tried to argue that Taylor's mental state was unstable, that she wasn't in her right mind when she committed the crime. But the evidence was overwhelming. This wasn't some impulsive act. This was planned. The most heart-wrenching moment of the trial, though, when Britney's family took the stand. They talked about Britney's excitement for the baby, how she had picked out the name Sage, how she couldn't wait to be a mother of two. And now, because of Taylor, all of that was gone. The jury didn't take long to deliberate. The verdict? Guilty on all counts. And the sentence? Death row. When the judge read the sentence, there wasn't a sound in the courtroom. No gasps, no cries, just silence. Taylor Parker was being held accountable for the unimaginable pain she had caused. But here's the thing that still haunts me. Justice was served, yes, but what about the lives that were shattered? Britney's 3-year-old daughter now has to grow up without her mother. Britney's family will never get to hold little Sage or see her grow up. And Taylor's own family? They were left wondering how the woman they knew could have done something so horrific. So, I have to ask, was the death sentence enough? Or does a crime like this go beyond what any punishment could ever truly address? And that's where the story ends. Or at least, as much of an ending as there can be in a case like this. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think justice was served? Or does this case leave you with more questions than answers? Now let's talk about the people who were left behind. Because, let's be real, the ripple effects of what Taylor Parker did didn't end when the trial was over. Britney's family, her husband, her little 3-year-old daughter, her parents, they're the ones who have to live with this loss every single day. And let me tell you, their grief? It's the kind that doesn't go away. Britney's husband had just stepped out that morning. He probably kissed her goodbye, maybe told her he'd be back soon. But he didn't know that when he walked out that door, he'd never see her alive again. Can you imagine that kind of guilt? Knowing that if you had just stayed home, maybe, things would have turned out differently? And then there's their daughter. She was just 3 years old. Too young to understand why mommy wasn't coming back, but old enough to know something was wrong. Britney's parents have said they've had to step in to help raise her. But how do you even begin to explain to a child why her mother was taken from her in such a brutal way? Britney's parents, oh, my heart breaks for them. They lost not only their daughter, but also their unborn grandchild. They've described how Britney had been so excited about the baby, how she'd called them just weeks before to tell them all about the name she'd chosen, Sage. And now, they're left with nothing but memories and the haunting knowledge of how their daughter suffered. But here's the part that makes it all so much worse. Through all of this, through the investigation, the trial, the sentencing, Taylor Parker showed no emotion. No regret. Nothing. She sat there in court stone-faced, as the prosecution laid out every gruesome detail of what she'd done. She didn't flinch when photos of the crime scene were shown. She didn't cry when Britney's husband and parents spoke about their loss. It was like she just didn't care. Even when she was given the chance to speak, to apologize, to show some shred of humanity, she didn't. Instead, she doubled down on her lies, insisting that she had just snapped and didn't mean for things to go so far. But how do you accidentally fake a pregnancy for months? How do you just snap, and drive to someone's house with a scalpel in your bag. And Taylor's own husband? Well, he was in shock. Can you imagine thinking you're about to start a family, planning a future with someone you love, only to find out that they've been lying to you the whole time? That they're capable of something so monstrous? He testified in court about how Taylor had gone to extreme lengths to convince him she was pregnant, showing him fake ultrasounds, talking about baby names, even planning the nursery. But here's the thing, he wasn't the only one who believed her. Taylor had managed to fool everyone around her. Her friends, her family, even Britney. And that's what makes this case so chilling. Taylor didn't just take lives, she destroyed them. Britney's family is left with a hole that will never be filled. Her husband and daughter will never be the same. And Taylor's own loved ones are left to grapple with the fact that someone they trusted was capable of such horror. So here's my question. How do you even begin to heal from something like this? Can you? Or is the damage too deep, too permanent? Thank you so much for sticking with me through this heartbreaking story. It's tough to talk about, but it's important to shed light on cases like these. If you found this story thought-provoking, or if it stirred something in you, don't forget to like this video. It helps more people discover stories like this. Also, feel free to share it with your friends or family and spark a discussion about it. And hey, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss more deep dives into stories like this. Together, we can uncover, reflect, and learn from these powerful moments. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay aware, and take care of each other.